Hey, what's up? How's everyone doing? Recovered from yesterday? Got yourself that ice cream? Good night's sleep? Maybe an extra glass of wine with dinner? But, kol hakavod to everybody. You're back for today. Kol hakavod. Sticking to it, huh? That's good. Friends, Daf Ayin Beis of Masechta Shabbos. Quick little overview before we begin. So we're going to start off with a little bit of complicated stuff. Not too bad, don't worry. Talk a little about Korban asham and shifcha charufas. Okay, and then that's really the first amud. And then the second amud, the second half of today's daf, really gets back into kind of more Shabbos-y kind of things. What happens when you unintentionally do a melakha, meaning you intended to do one thing and you ended up doing a melakha, and that is really going to take us to the end. So let us begin. We're starting all the way at the bottom of daf samach. What? No, all the way at the bottom of daf ayin aleph amud beis. Okay, here we go. Last line of the page. Amar ula. Okay, well, actually, let's do a little intro. So, okay, there is a few things that we want to know right now. Okay, so there's something that's called an asham. Okay, korban asham. It's basically, a korban that you bring for certain things that you do. Okay, it's a type of korban. It's a korban asham. Now, there's something that's called an asham talui. Okay, and an asham talui is sometimes you bring a korban. Okay, when you are not sure if you actually did the aver that you have to bring an asham for. Okay, so for example, there is something that's called an asham me'ilos. Okay, what is me'ila? Me'ila means that if you get benefit from kodesh. So for example, let's say you have meat from, a korban chatas. Okay, now only a kohen is allowed to eat this meat. Okay, and let's say you eat this meat and you accidentally got hana from this kodesh that you were not allowed to get hana from. So you would have to bring a korban in asham me'ilos, okay, and in addition you would also add a chomesh, a fifth, okay. So now what happens, however, if you have two pieces of meat in front of you? One piece of meat is chulin, it's just regular old meat. The other meat, however, is kodesh. It is this kudshim meat that you would not be allowed to get any hana'ah from it, and if you do, you would have to bring you would be mo'el. You'd be mo'el, and you would then have to bring a korban me'ila, asham me'ilos. However, so you eat one of these pieces of meat, but you are not sure if you ate the kodesh meat or if you ate the chulin meat. So what do? So you bring an asham talui. You bring a korban asham so it's not an asham me'ilos because you don't know if you necessarily ate the kodesh. So you bring this in limbo kind of korban, this asham talui, this dependent korban, right? That just in case you ate just in case you ate the kodesh, so then you're bringing this this asham talui. And then what happens is, if you then later find out 100% that you definitely did eat the kodesh, you then bring an asham vada. You then bring an asham me'ilos. Okay? So now, there's a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon in Masechta Kresus. Okay? Now over there, Rabbi Akiva says pretty much just like we described. Okay? That if you had these two pieces of meat in front of you, one was chulin, one was kodesh, you're not sure, you ate one of them, you're not sure which one you ate. So you bring your asham talui, and that's it, and then you wait. And if you don't find out any more information than that, well, okay, so you brought your asham talui, and that is that. If you then later find out that the piece of meat that you ate was the kodesh meat, so then Rabbi Akiva says at that point, you go back and you now bring an asham me'ilos, and you add an additional chomesh you pay back the value of the meat that you ate plus an additional chomesh. Rabbi Tarfon disagrees. He says that what you can do is, since the actual korban of a ram is the same for the asham talui and for the asham me'ilos, in both cases you would be offering a ram. So he says, how about this? Why don't you just bring one korban, right? You had two pieces of meat in front of you. One of them was kodesh, one of them was chulin. You don't know which one you ate. And so what you could do is, you could just go to the Beis HaMikdash one time, bring your ram, and say, look, if here's this asham talui, because I don't know if I ate the kodesh or if I ate the chulin. And here is also the value of the meat that I ate plus a fifth. And in the event that I did actually eat the kodesh, we'll then treat this korban as my asham me'ilos, right? And treat this money that I'm bringing as the, value plus the chomesh. And if I didn't eat the kodesh meat and I ate the chulin meat, well then this animal is just going to be an asham talui, and this money that I'm giving, just here's the donation. Okay, that is Rabbi Tarfon's opinion. So we see that Rabbi Akiva requires that you have to have yediyah at the time that you bring the korban asham, right? According to Rabbi Akiva, right, you would not be able to simply make this condition, this t'nai that Rabbi Tarfon makes, like just, if I didn't eat, if I ate the chulin, well then this is just an asham talui and it's a donation, the money's a donation. But if I ate the kodesh, then this will be my asham. According to Rabbi Akiva, that would not work because at the time that you're bringing the korban, you don't know for sure right now that you actually ate the kodesh, right? According to Rabbi Akiva, in order to bring this asham me'ilos, you would have to know with 100% certainty that you ate the kachim meat, okay? Whereas Rabbi Tarfon says, no, you don't necessarily have to have a yediyah at the time that you offer the korban, and therefore even if at the time that I offer this ram, I don't yet know if I actually ate the kachim meat or if I ate the chulin meat, and I only find out later, that's okay. I don't need to have a yediyah, a 100% certain knowledge that I ate the kachim at the time that I bring this asham me'ilos, okay? So that's machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon regarding, do you require yediyah at the time that you bring your korban asham, or do you not require yediyah at the time that you bring your korban asham? Rabbi Akiva says, yes, you do require yediyah. Rabbi Tarfon says, no, you do not require yediyah. Let's talk about one more thing, friends. There's something called a shivcha charufa. Who knows what a shivcha charufa is? It's a little bit, not exactly complicated, but there are a few pieces to it. Okay, so you have this shivcha, you have this maidservant, who's basically the same thing as an Eved Kanani, but the female version, okay? So a non-Jewish maidservant. Now, she is owned, in this case, by two masters, okay? Now, a shivcha charufa, a shivcha Kanaanis is chayavis in mitzvos, right? And when she goes free, so then she becomes she's Jewish, okay? So now what happened was she's owned by two masters. One of the masters frees her. So she's 50% free, 50% shivcha. Now, an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave, is allowed to marry a shivcha Kanaanis. Is allowed, I guess it's one of the perks of being a Jewish slave, you can marry a shivcha Kanaanis. So now, you have this Eved, and she is now engaged to this Eved Ivri fellow. And she's also 50% free and 50% not free. And then, some other guy comes along and sleeps with her. That is a shivcha charufa, ladies and gentlemen. So, the halacha is that if somebody sleeps with a shivcha charufa, he has to bring a korban asham. He has to bring a korban asham. Okay, with that intro, let's move on to the Gemara. Okay, so we know that if somebody sleeps with a shivcha charufa, he has to bring a korban asham. We also know that there's a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon regarding when you bring a korban asham, do you have to know with 100% certainty that that you did the avera that for which you're bringing the Korban Asham. Amar Ula, says Ula, Lamanda Amar Asham Vadai Lo Baya Yediya Betchila. So according to Rabbi Tarfon, who says that to bring a Asham Vadai, to bring a Korban Asham, you do not need to have 100% certainty in advance that you are chayav to bring this Korban. What the heck is flickering? There's something flickering over here. I don't know what it is. Is it maybe the light? I have no clue. Maybe something's flying past like the sun or something. I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's a little distracting though, but in any event. So, according to Rabbi Tarfon, so then, Yediyah, knowledge, does not play an integral role in bringing a Korban Asham, right? Because even if you don't have total knowledge, even if you don't have 100% knowledge at the time that you bring the Korban, that you did it, that you're chayiv to bring the Korban, you could still bring it nonetheless. So, according to Rabbi Tarfon, Yediyah, knowledge does not play an integral role in bringing a Korban Asham. Okay, fine. So now, Bo'el Chamesh Be'ilos B'Shifcha Charufa. So if somebody slept with a Shifcha Charufa 5 times, now there's one more piece to this actually, which is that there's a Mishnah in Masechta Kresus, which says that if somebody sleeps with a Shifcha Charufa 5 times, even if it's b'mezid, if somebody sleeps with the Shifcha Charufa 5 times, he only has to bring 1 Korban Asham for all 5 of that. All 5 times he sleeps with her. So now, if he slept with her 5 times, b'shifcha charufa, and adds the gilyon, that v'noda lo bein kol achas v'achas, and in between each time that he slept with her, he found out that she was a shifcha charufa, and that he would be chayiv to bring a korban asham. But then somehow he managed to forget again, before each time he slept with, the next time he slept with her. So Chamash bilos b'shifcha charufa. So he slept with the shifcha charufa 5 times. Eino chai, right? And he found out in between each time that she was a shifcha charufa. Eino chai vela achas. He's only chayiv to bring a korban, 1 korban asham. Because the Gemara wants to say, Ula wants to say, that according to Rabbi Tarfon, Yediyah, knowledge, doesn't really play a big role in Korban Ashams, and then we don't really care so much that there was a Yediyah in between each of the 5 times that he slept with her, and therefore he could still just bring 1 Korban for all 5 times. Maskef la Rav Hamnuna. So now Rav Hamnuna asks a kasha, but Ela me'ata, let me ask you a kasha. Ba'al v'hifresh Korban. What if he slept with her 1 time, and then he separated a Korban that he's going to bring for his Korban Ashram, and then he slept with her again. And then he separated another Korban, etc. V'amram tinuli ad she'evol. And then he says, right, so he basically sleeps with her 1 time, sets aside a Korban that he's going to bring for his Ashram, then he says, wait people, I just want to sleep with her 1 more time. Are you still going to say that Korban that he set aside for his Ashram from having slept with her the first time is going to work for the second time? After you already set it aside and said, wait for me, I just want to chap around 1 more time and it'll be included with the same korban. So Amarle, so Ula said to Ramnuna, Ma'asid l'achar afrasha ka'amart, Ma'asid l'achar afrasha lo ka'amina. You're asking me that if he does this ma'aseh, that if he sleeps with her again after he already set aside a korban, would that second time that he sleeps with her be included in that first korban that he separated? Of course not. He would have to bring a separate korban for that second time that he sleeps with her, right? When we're saying that, Ula's saying that when this person sleeps with her 5 times, and there was knowledge that she was a shifcha charufa in between each of the 5 times, he didn't actually set aside a korban. He just knew, and then somehow forgot again, I guess. And then we're saying he could just bring 1 korban for all of them. But if he had set aside a korban already, well then, he would have to bring a separate korban for each instance. Ki asa Rav Dimi Amar. Now, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said the following: L'man Amar Asham Vadei Ba'i Yediyah B'Tchila. So according to Rabbi Akiva, who requires that at the time that you bring the asham, you know with 100% certainty that you did the thing that is going to require you to bring this korban asham, i.e., yediyah, knowledge, does play a significant role in bringing a korban asham. So Baal Chamesh Be'ilos B'Shivcha Charufa. So if he slept with his Shivcha Charufa 5 times, and in between each of the 5 times, he did find out that she was a Shivcha Charufa, well then Chayav Al Kol Achas V'Achas, you're going to be Chayav, everyone is going to agree that you're going to be Chayav 5 Korbanos, since Yediyah plays a significant role, and therefore we care about the fact that in between each time he slept with her, he found out that she was a Shivcha Charufa, and he's going to have to bring 5 separate Korban, I don't know if I said Korban Chatases, but Korban Ashams. So Amarle Abaye, so now Abaye though said to Rav Dimi, but are Chatas, Diba'inan Yediyah Batchila, but what about a Korban Chatas? Korban Chatas, you have to have knowledge in order to bring the Korban Chatas, right? So if I eat chaylev by accident, okay, so I only bring a Korban Chatas when I know for sure that I ate the chaylev. So, right, so Korban Chatas requires knowledge, and yet, of course, yesterday, we had the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Reish Lakish, if you have to bring multiple korbanos or one is enough. Ufligi Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. And there's machlokas Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, meaning, if a person eats 2 pieces of chaylev in one ha'elam, and then he finds out, and then he has separate yediyas, right? He finds out about the kazesim of chaylev separately. So Rabbi Yochanan says that you have to bring 2 korban chatases, but Reish Lakish, however, says 1 chatas would be enough. And therefore, how come Rav Dimi is saying that when it comes to the Shivcha Charufa, where he only needs to bring 1 korban for all 5 be'ilos, just like when it comes to chaylev that you eat behelem achas, you only have to bring 1 korban, right? Now, Rav Dimi wants to say that everyone would agree, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan would agree, that when it comes to this Shivcha Charufa, that if there was, that according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that knowledge is an important role in bringing a Korban Asham, well then everyone would agree that since he had knowledge in between each time that he slept with her, that he would have to bring 5 Korban Ashams. Even Reish Lakish would agree to that. But Abai says, why would Reish Lakish agree? By Korban Chatas, which has this element of Yediyah, Reish Lakish nonetheless says that even though he found out about the 2 Kezesim of Chaylev separately, you would still only be able to bring 1 Korban Chatas for both. So I have to assume that Reish Lakish would say the same thing here by Shivcha Charufa, that even though there was a Yediyah in between each time, you would still be able to bring 1 Korban for all of them. Ishtik. And guess what? Rav Dimi was quiet. He didn't have an answer to that question. Amar le Abai said to Rav Dimi, Dilma b'maisa delachar afrasha ka'amar tuchtu Rav Amnuna. Maybe what you meant to say is that if he slept with her 5 times, and in between each of the 5 times he actually set aside a korban, then he would have to bring a separate korban? Amar le in said, yeah, yep, 100%. That is what I meant. And that's just like Rav Amnuna, who said that if he, right, what did he say? Maisa delachar afrasha lo ka'amina. Right? Well, he didn't say that. Ula said that, but that was based on his question, right? That when you set aside a korban and then do the maisa afterwards, you would bring separate korbanos. Okay. Kyasa Ravin Amar. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said the following: Hakol modim b'shivcha charufa. Everyone agrees by a shivcha charufa. Okay, what do they agree about? We'll have to see. V'hakol modim b'shivcha charufa. And also, everybody agrees by shivcha charufa again. What do they agree about this time? I don't know, we'll have to see. Machlokas b'shivcha charufa. There's also machlokas when it comes to shivcha charufa. What's the machlokas? I don't know, we'll have to see. But it's all based on stuff that we know already from this stuff. So when we say that everyone agrees by shivcha charufa, de'eno chayiv ela achas kede'ula, that you're only going to be chayiv 1 korban asham like Ula, meaning that Ula says that according to Rabbi Tarfin, who says that knowledge does not play an important role in bringing a korban asham, well, in that case, if he sleeps with a shifcha charufa 5 times, even if he finds out in between each time that she's a shifcha charufa, you would still only bring 1 korban. Everyone agrees about that. Ve'al kol modim, and everyone also agrees, b'shifcha charufa d'chayav al kol achas v'achas k'rav hamnuna. And everyone also agrees that when it comes to a shifcha charufa, if he set aside a korban between each time that he slept with her, well then he is going to bring 5 korban ashams, like a Rav Hamnuna. Umachlogas b'shifcha charufa, and there's also an argument by shifcha charufa. What's that argument? Limando Amar asham vaday by yedila betchila machlokas the Rabbi Yochanan Reb Shimon ben Lakish, that according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that knowledge does play an important role when it comes to a korban asham, well then, Rabbi Yochanan would say that if he found out in between each time he slept with her that she's a shifcha charufa, he would have to bring 5 korbanos, whereas Reish Lakish would say you only need to bring 1 korban, just like he would say by when he ate 2 pieces of chelev in 1 helem, he would only need to bring 1 korban, even though there was a separate yediyas. Alright. You guys got that, right? Wasn't so crazy. Alright, let's go weiter, friends. This next part is cool. Itmar, it was stated, Niskabin lagbias atalush v'chatach esam mechuber pater. Okay. Let's say in his chutzner, let's say in his courtyard, he has a tomato patch, and he's got a knife lying over there on the floor in the tomato patch. He goes to pick up the knife, and guess what happens? He accidentally cuts off a tomato from the plant. So, Niskavin lagbias atalush, he intended to pick up something that was not connected to the ground, i.e., he intended to just pick up a knife. And in the process, he did something that he had no intention to do at all. He wasn't even thinking about it. He wasn't even doing that. He was just picking up a knife. And what happened? The next thing he knows, there's a tomato on the floor. He cut off a tomato by accident. So everyone agrees in that case, pater. Because that's what's called misasek. Rashi explains it very nicely. At the end of the second Rashi on the page, right, the first thin line of Rashi, he says, this guy was busy picking up the knife. He was not busy cutting things. He was busy picking up a knife. The next thing he knows, there's a tomato on the floor. He's going to be pater because it's what's called misasek. He was busy with something else, and all of a sudden some kind of unintended consequence happened. That is going to be okay. Doesn't have to bring a korban chatas. This is where it gets more, where there's a machlokas. What if you intended to cut something that was separated from the ground? So that's okay, right? Let's say you had 1 tomato there that was already, you picked it before Shabbos, and you were cutting it, and the next thing you know, you accidentally cut another tomato off of the vine on Shabbos. So, what happens in that case? So Rava Amar Pater, Abaye Amar Chayev. So in this case, machlokas Abaye and Rava. Rava says he's Pater, and Abaye says he's Chayev. Rava Amar Pater, Rava says he's Pater because look, at the end of the day, he did not intend to cut something in an asur way, right? Meaning, everything we've been talking about so far about shogeg on Shabbos, right? Meaning, so let's think about it. Did he know it was Shabbos? Yes, he knew it was Shabbos. Did he know that cutting something that is connected to the ground on Shabbos is asur? Yes, he knew that was asur. But he had no intention to do that. His intention was to cut something that was disconnected from the ground. His intention was to cut this tomato that he picked yesterday. All of a sudden, he sees that there's a tomato lying on the floor that he cut off something from the plant. But Rava says, look, that isn't going to be considered shogeg. That was completely unintended. And therefore he's going to be pater from having to bring a korban. Whereas Abaye Amar, whereas Abaye says, look, sure, it's unfortunate that he cut off this tomato from the plant, but he was, after all, intending to cut. It's not like, by the knife, he was just picking up a knife, and all of a sudden the next thing he notices, there's a tomato on the floor. He was intending to pick something up, and all the while he ended up cutting something down. So he intended to do 1 melakha, meaning 1 activity which was permitted, and the next thing you know, something not else that's unpermitted happened. Everyone agrees that that's okay. He's not going to have to bring a korban chatas. But Abaye says, look, at the end of the day, in this case, he was intending to cut, and he did cut. okay, it happens to be that what ended up getting cut was not necessarily what he intended to cut, but he intended to cut and he did cut. I'm sorry that it ended up being that you cut something that you didn't intend to cut, but this was your intention to do this activity, and therefore you're going to bring a korban chatas. Amar Rava, says Rava, how come I say that when he intended to cut the talush and he cut the mechubar, that he is pater? The Tanya, as we learn in a brisa, chomer b'Shabbos mi shar mitzvahs v'chomer shar mitzvahs mi b'Shabbos. Mi Shabbos. Shabbos is more strict than other mitzvahs, but at the same time, other mitzvahs are more strict than Shabbos, and we're going to explain all of this. Chomer Shabbos mi shar mitzvahs. Shabbos is more strict than other mitzvahs. Shabbos also shtayim be'elim echad chayav al kol achas ve'achas ma she'en kein b'shar mitzvahs. And again, we're going to explain this. That on Shabbos, when he does two melachis in one, he'elem, so he's going to be chayav for each one. Of course, assuming that it is Zadin Shabbos v'shigagas melachos. If he knows it's Shabbos and he doesn't realize that these two things are also to do on Shabbos, so he's going to be chayav a korban for each one. Mashen came b'shar mitzvahs, which is not the case by other mitzvahs, and we're going to explain in what context. But if he would do multiple mitzvahs in one, multiple of these other averos in one he'elem, he would only be chayav one korban chatas. V'chomer shar mitzvahs mishabbos, and at the same time, there are cases when other mitzvahs are more strict than Shabbos. Sheb'shar mitzvahs shagag below miskavin chayav mashen came b'Shabbos. Since by other mitzvahs, if you made a mistake without intending, you would be chayav to bring a korban chatas, whereas on Shabbos you are going to be pater. We're going to have to explain what this bit means, but this is Rava's proof that for his opinion, his support for his opinion that if he intended to cut something that was disconnected from the ground, but he then ended up cutting something unintentionally that was connected to the ground, Rava says it would be pater, and he somehow learns it from this brisa. Now, we have to unpack this brisa to understand what it means, all these stricter and less strict and all that stuff. Amar Mar, we just said, Chomer Shabbos mishar mitzvahs. So we say that Shabbos is more strict than other mitzvahs. How come? Shabbos also shtayim be'elim echad. That on Shabbos, if you did two melachis in one he'elim, chayav kol achas v'achas, you're going to be chayav for each of the melachas that you did, a korban chatas. Ma she'ein kein b'shar mitzvahs, which is not the case by other mitzvahs, you'd only be chayav one korban chatas. Hey Chidami, what is this talking about? Ilema de'avad ketzira utrina. If we're saying, well, he knew it was Shabbos, he didn't realize that grinding and harvesting is aser, and therefore he has to bring two korban chatases. The chavase ga b'shar mitzvahs, what would be the equivalent case regarding other mitzvahs? Well, achal chelev v'dam. What if he eats a kazayis of chelev and a revius of dam? So, hacha tarte michayev, hacha tarte michayev. Well, that wouldn't be a good example because on Shabbos you would be chayev two korbanos, one for ktsira and one for tchina. But then again, also by chelev and by dam, you would also be chayev two korban chatases, one for the chelev and one for the dam. But we're looking for a case where by shar mitzvahs you'd only have to bring one korban chatas. Okay. Ella shar mitzvahs lo mechayev elachad echidami. Well, what would be an example by shar mitzvahs where you would only have to bring one korban chatas? Well, the achal chelev v'chelev. Okay, let's say it's talking about where he eats two kazesim of chelev, and yet he only has to bring one korban chatas. Well, what would be the equivalent in Shabbos land? Well, if he did ketzira twice in the same he'elim, you'd only be chayev one korban chatas as well. So again, what is the case where on Shabbos you would do two melachis and you would be chayev two korbanis, yet by other averis you do two of them and you only chayev one korban? So le'olam da'avid ketzira utchina. So really it's talking about where he harvested and he ground, and therefore he has to bring two korbanis. Umay ma she'en kein b'shar mitzvahs. So what is the equivalent case by other mitzvahs where it would be pater? Where we'd only have to bring one korban? Avodah zara uchud Rabbi Ami. It's talking about avodah zara like Rabbi Ami. The Rabbi Ami zibeach v'kiter v'nisech ba'ala ma'achas enu chayev ela achas. The Rabbi Ami says that if a person sacrificed and burnt incense, I believe, and poured libations, wine libations, all in the same ha'elem, he'd only be chayav one korban chatas. There you go. There you go. So on Shabbos, while if he does kitzira and tchina, he'd be chayav 2 korban chatases. By Avodah Zarah, if he does zibuach and kitor and nisuch in one ha'elem, he would nonetheless only have to bring 1 korban chatas. Okay, so Ma'akim to Avodah Zarah. Okay, so what? So we're saying that Shabbos obviously refers to Shabbos and Shar Mitzvos refers to Avodah Zarah? Well, Ema Seifa. No, there were 2 parts to that brisa. We just read the first part. What's the second part? Chomer b'shar mitzvahs right, so chomer b'shar mitzvahs, that there is also a context in which other mitzvahs, which we're now assuming is Avodah Zarah, is more chamor than Shabbos. Okay. Sheb'shar mitzvahs shagag b'lo miskavin chayav ma she'en kein b'Shabbos. That if you made a mistake without kavana by other mitzvahs, which we're assuming right now is Avodah Zarah, you would nonetheless be chayav, whereas by Shabbos you would be pater. Okay? So, hi shagag b'lo miskavin b'Avodah Zarah, d'Avodah Zarah echidami. Well, what is this case in Avodah Zarah where you did a shogeg without kavana and you are going to be chayav? Ile meksav beis hakneses hu v'ishtach vela harili b'la shamayim. Well, if it's talking about a situation where he thought that he was bowing down to a synagogue, but in the end it turns out that he was bowing down to a Avodah Zarah temple. Look, at the end of the day, his heart was to God, was to Hashem, and therefore he's not going to be chayav. So, we're looking for a case where shagag b'lo miskavin would be chayav. But over here, libo was l'shamayim, his heart was to God, and therefore he's not going to be chayav. Okay, so what they would do is, I don't think it's necessarily that much different than today, but I think it is different than today in that they would bow down, but they would make statues of kings, I think after they died, and then people would bow down to it, but not necessarily as an avodah zarah, but more out of respect. So echidami. So what's the case over there? Well, if this fellow accepted this statue of this dead king as his god, well, then it's just straight up avodah zarah. He wouldn't be chayav achatas, he'd be chayav, I think, kares. Now, if he didn't accept it as a god, well, it's not avodah zarah. It's like some king that they would bow down to, but out of honor than out of avodah zarah. So then he wouldn't be chayav achatas. Okay, so let's say it's talking about a situation where he bows down to an avodah zarah, not because he believes in avodah zarah, but either out of love of somebody that he wants to bow down to this avodah zarah out of love of this person, or maybe he's scared of a person, therefore he bows down to this avodah zarah. And in that case, he would bring a korban chatas. But now, not to be confused with the Abaye and Rava from the top of the page by when you intended to cut something disconnected and you cut something connected, which is like kind of what we're bringing this brisa to prove. No, we're not talking about that Abaye and Rava. We're talking about a machlokas Abaye and Rava in Sanhedrin, right? Where it says that if somebody bows down to an idol, may ahava umiyira, out of love or out of fear, so then Abaye says he would be chayiv, but Rava says that he would be pater. So, if we want to say that this situation by avodah zarah, where you do something b'shogeg, below miskavin, we're saying that it's talking about where he bows down to an idol out of avo v'yira, and he's chayav to bring a korban, well, that's really only going to make sense according to Abaye. But Rava's opinion is that he would be pater. So, we'd rather obviously look for a case where, it would be according to everybody. Right? So, anichal Abaye, da amar chayav, Rava da amar pater, ma'ikal memar, ella, ba'omer mutter. Fine. So, let's say it's talking about where you assume that it's mutter to bow down to this avodah zarah. As Rashi says, maybe it's talking about this Gershon Isgayer Beina Nachrim that we mentioned the other day. If you have a convert who converted amongst the Gentiles and he just never knew that avodah zarah wasn't allowed. Okay? And then he bowed down to this avodah zarah. So we're going to say that by avodah zarah he'd be chayav to bring a korban chatas. But I guess the assumption would have to be, and the Gemara is about to ask this, that the assumption would be that on Shabbos, if you didn't know that something was asur, so then you wouldn't have to bring a korban chatas. Which the Gemara says, what? Masha ein came b'Shabbos depater legamrei? Meaning, if we then take the flip side of this brisa, right? They were saying that there are sometimes when shar mitzvos are more strict than Shabbos, and we're saying that shar mitzvos is avodah zarah, and we're saying that sometimes by avodah zarah, if you are a gersh and Isgai ben Anachrim, and you thought that avodah zarah was mutter, and you bow down to the avodah zarah, you would nonetheless be chayav to bring a korban chatas. But the flip side, on Shabbos, if you thought that something was mutter and you did it on Shabbos, you'd be pater from a korban chatas. What do you mean? That's exactly like classic shogeg on Shabbos, right? You knew it was Shabbos, you thought that this thing was mutter, and therefore you did it. Of course you can be chayav a korban chatas. Ad kan lo ba'a minei Rava mirav Nachman elai lechiyuvei chadi lechiyuvei tarti ava maftere legamrei lo. Right? If you remember back to Daf Ayin Amud Beis 2 days ago, so Rava asked Rav Nachman, he says, what if a person didn't know it was Shabbos, and he also didn't know that these things weren't allowed to be done on Shabbos? So he says, should it be chayav 1 korban chatas or 2 korban chatas? But certainly he's not going to assume that he doesn't have to bring anything at all. No, of course he has to bring a korban chatas. The question is how many, right? But certainly he has to bring a korban chatas. So just because on Shabbos you don't know that something is a melakha, that you shouldn't be doing something on Shabbos, doesn't mean that you don't have to bring korban chatas. Of course you have to bring korban chatas. So again, what is the case where by avodah zarah, if you were shogeg below miskavin, you would be chayav a korban chatas, but on Shabbos you'd be pater? So lalav reisha b'avodah zarah v'seifa b'shar mitzvahs. Okay. Rather, we have to treat the first part of this brisa and the second part of this brisa separately. The first part of the brisa is talking about avodah zarah, okay? And it's saying that on Shabbos, if you were to harvest and also to grind, you would be chayav 2 chataos. But by avodah zarah, if in one helem you sacrificed and also burnt incense and also poured wine libations, in one helem, so you would only have to bring 1 korban chatas. Now the second part of that brisa, which is saying that if that sometimes other mitzvos can be more strict than Shabbos, that is talking about just other mitzvos. It's not talking about avodah zarah anymore. Okay, so what is it talking about? V'shagag v'lo miskaven b'shar mitzvos heichidami. So what's the case by other mitzvos when you were shogeg below miskaven and you're chayav achatas, whereas on Shabbos you'd be pater? Tisaver deshumanhu v'achlo. That if there was fat in front of you and you thought it was shuman is fats that are allowed to be eaten, but in the end it turned out to be chelev. Okay, tisaver shumanhu v'achalo. That you thought it was shuman and you ate it, and it turned out to be chelev. So you would be chayav a korban chatas. Masha'en came b'Shabbos de pater, which is not the case on Shabbos, where you would be pater, diniskaven lachtoch es atalush v'chasach es amachubar pater. That on Shabbos, if you intended to cut something that was separate from the ground, but you ended up eating something that was cutting something that was connected to the ground, you will be pater. And that is how Rava explains that this brisa is coming to support his opinion. Remember, Rava said that if you intend to cut something that is separated from the ground, and you ended up cutting something that is connected to the ground, Rava says that you would be pater. That is analogous to the situation where you intended to eat shuman, something that is permitted, and you ended up eating chelev, which is not permitted, and we say that you'd be chayav to, that you would be bidyuk. You'd be chayav to bring a korban chatas, right? And we're saying that that is why other mitzvahs are more chamor than on Shabbos, because while this brisa is saying that while when it comes to other mitzvahs, while when it comes to chelev, if you thought that it was one thing and it was really another, that you thought that you were eating shuman, and in the end you ended up eating chelev, you'd be chayav a korban chatas. The analogous situation on Shabbos, however, you'd be pater for, which is if you thought that you were cutting something that's disconnected from the ground and you ended up cutting something that is connected to the ground, Rava wants to argue that the brisa is saying that you would be pater. Now, Abaye, however, says that if you intended to cut something that is disconnected from the ground, and you ended up cutting something that is connected to the ground, you would be chayiv. So how does he explain this brisa? So V'Abaye, shogag below miskaven echidami. What is this shogeg below miskaven that you're chayiv by shar mitzvos but pater on Shabbos? To suffer rokhu uvlao. Okay, so in that case, Abaye says, no, it's not talking about where you thought it was shuman and it ended up being chaylev. It was, whatever this fat was, it was like dissolved, and it was like a liquid, and it looked kind of like spit. And he thought that it was spit. Isn't that gross? He thought that it was spit. So, and he ate that. Now, spit, you don't eat. You swallow it, but you don't eat it, right? And because you don't, so it's considered like two separate things, meaning you intended to swallow the spit, but you ended up eating the chaylev, right? So you didn't intend to eat, but you ended up eating. And we're saying that by shar mitzvos, you would nonetheless be chayav a korban chatas for eating chaylev. Masha enkein b'Shabbos the pater, where you'd be pater to niskaven l'agbeis atalosh v'chatzachas amechubar pater, because we know that on Shabbos, if you intended to pick up a knife, and while you were picking up this knife, you accidentally cut off a tomato from the plant, so you'd be pater, right? Because those are two separate things. You thought you were picking up something, and then you ended up cutting something off the ground. You're going to be pater for that. Here also, right? And that's analogous to our situation with the chaylev and the spit. You thought that you were swallowing spit, which is not achila, but you ended up doing achila for the shuman. You ended up eating shuman because it was actually, not shuman, chaylev, because it was actually chaylev. So Abaye is saying that while by other mitzvos, while by the spit and the chaylev, you would be chayiv to bring a korban. On Shabbos, however, you would be pater, meaning if you intended to pick up a knife, but ended up cutting down a tomato from the plant, you would be pater. However, Abaye would maintain his opinion that if you intended to cut something that is disconnected from the plant, but ended up cutting something that is connected to the plant, you would be chayiv, because at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. Cutting is cutting. Sure, you intended to cut one thing, you ended up cutting the other thing, but you intended, it's all within the context of cutting, and therefore you'd be chayiv a korban chatas. That was daf ayin beis. Let's do a recap. So we started off talking a shtickle about asham vadai. Do you need knowledge when you bring an asham vadai? Rabbi Kiva says yes, and therefore you wouldn't be able to just, if you had two pieces of meat in front of you, one of them was chulin, one of them was kodesh, you wouldn't simply, and you ate one of them, you're not sure which one, you wouldn't be able to simply, bring a ram and say, look, here's the ram, for now it's an asham talui, if I find out later that I actually ate the kodesh, so then it'll just work as an asham vadai. No, you have to know you have to have explicit knowledge at the time that you bring the korban. Whereas Rabbi Tarfon says you don't have to have explicit knowledge, and therefore you would be able to make this condition that, look, I don't know right now if I ate the kodesh, so right now it's an asham talui, but if I found out later that I did actually eat the kodesh, well then this will be an asham vadai. Now, Ravin, when he came, so then we had some different discussions about asham vadai in the context of shifcha charufa, which then concluded with Ravin coming from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel and saying that, everyone agrees when it comes to, what does it say? Everyone agrees by shifcha charufa, and additionally everyone agrees by shifcha charufa, and there's also machlokas by shifcha charufa. So we say that everyone agrees that by shifcha charufa, that according to Rabbi Tarfon, who does not require explicit knowledge when you bring the asham vadai, that if he sleeps with this shifcha charufa 5 times, even though there's knowledge in between each time, right? But according to Rabbi Tarfon, knowledge is not important, so therefore you'd only have to bring 1 korban chatas for all 5. Everyone also agrees that if he had set aside a korban for his asham in between each time he slept with her, then he'd have to bring 5 korban chatases, 5 korban ashams. And there's a machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, just like our machlokas yesterday, where Rabbi Yochanan says you'd have to bring multiple korbanos, and Rish Lakish says you don't have to bring 1 korban. That is that's according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that knowledge is significant when it comes to a korban asham. And in this case, he slept with the shifcha charufa 5 times, and there was knowledge that she was a shifcha charufa in between each of the 5 times. Rabbi Yochanan would say you have to bring 5 korban ashams. Rish Lakish would say you would only have to bring 1. Now, what happens, now we're kind of moving on to when you intend to do one thing but end up doing another thing, would you have to bring a korban chatas on Shabbos? So everyone agrees that if you intend to pick up a knife from the ground, and while you're picking up the knife, you accidentally cut off a tomato from your plant. So everyone agrees that you'd be pater there because you're misasik. You were busy picking up a knife, and all of a sudden this other melakha, which you completely had no intention to do, got done. And that is cutting the tomato from the plant. You would be pater for that. Now, what happens, however, if you intend to cut and you do cut? What happens if you're intending to cut something that's disconnected from the ground, but you end up cutting something that's connected to the ground, which is not allowed? So do we treat it like when you're picking up the knife and then suddenly the tomato ends up on the floor? Or do we say that no, this case is different, since at the end of the day he was intending to cut and he did cut? Rava says you're going to be pater. Abai says you're going to be chayav. That's funny. Okay. Now, Rava then brought this brisa to support him, right? And in the brisa we said that sometimes Shabbos is more chamor than other averos, because on Shabbos if you do harvesting and grinding, you'll be chayav 2 korbanos, whereas by other averos, which we defined as being avodah zara, you'd only have to bring 1 korban. That if you do, if you sacrifice and burn incense and pour wine libations to avodah zarah in 1 helem, you only have to bring 1 korban. But then we said that, however, sometimes other mitzvos are more chamor than Shabbos. And at the beginning, we tried to make it make sense with avodah zarah, but then we said that no, this second part can't be talking about avodah zarah; it's talking about other mitzvos. And Rava says that that's talking about when you intended to eat shuman, which is mutter, but you ended up eating chelev, which is not allowed. That by other mitzvos you would have to bring a korban chatos, but on Shabbos, when you intend to cut something that's disconnected from the ground, but you ended up cutting something connected to the ground, you would be pater. So that's his proof from this brisa that, when he intended to cut something disconnected from the ground, because something connected to the ground, you would be pater. Whereas Abaye defines that brisa as saying, no, that's talking about when you're chayiv is when you intended to eat, you thought that it was spit, and you intended to, swallow the spit, but you ended up eating shuman, eating chelev, so that is where you'd be chayiv. Whereas on Shabbos, if you intended to pick up the knife and you ended up cutting something off the tree, you would be pater. But however, if you intended to cut something disconnected from the ground, but you ended up cutting something connected to the ground, you would be chayiv according to Abaye. That's Daf Ayin Beis. I hope everybody enjoyed Daf Ayin Beis, and I hope you enjoy your day.